Our diversity is our strength, and our unity is our power as a nation.
Hi, I'm Major Rachel Jones, and what pride means to me is celebrating that diversity is our strength as a nation and as an army.
We believe our diversity, our differences, when joined together by a common set of ideals, makes us stronger.
Who we are as Americans, embodying the simple truth that our diversity is the strength of this nation.
No, it's not. Diversity's death. That's what it is. It's the death of everything. As soon as you prioritize something that's not important, whatever you're doing will die, slowly but surely. Joining me now, a professor, Professor Nicholas, is it Giordano? Is that how I say that? I don't want to mess it up, Professor.
You got it.
Professor Giordano, Higher Education Fellow at Campus Reform. Professor, is diversity our strength?
No, that's a myth. And unfortunately, it's a myth that's been going on for too long. What our strength is assimilation. The reality in America is that there's nothing that really links us together. We're a whole bunch of different people from different places that come together to create one nation. We don't have 2,000 years of recorded history. We don't have one shared culture and customs and traditions. And so we have to figure out a way. How do we link this society together, make it work and coexist together? Because if you look at any other society, slight variations leads to warfare, leads to attacks on each other. Here in the United States, we've made it work by understanding that we have a melting pot that people go through. They assimilate to American culture, shedding some of their previous culture, and adopt American political philosophies. The appreciation for concepts of liberty and freedom, the appreciation for capitalism, the appreciation for individualism, that we are in control of our own destiny, and the concept, the all-important concept of limited government that we've long forgotten about. Now, you have to assimilate into the culture in order to appreciate America. What we've seen with this diversity is our strength nonsense is that's a tribal society. You create these groups, and then these groups end up going after each other, and we're witnessing that today.
Professor, how is that, the diversity, the focus on a ridiculous concept as you just laid out, how has it led to what we're seeing now on college campuses? A lot of people, now I've been all over this for a while, as have you, but a lot of people are just now waking up to the fact we have a bunch of vicious little commie monsters on our college campuses. How did diversity get us there?
Yeah, well, I can't believe that people are shocked by this. At Campus Reform, we've been warning about this for well over a decade, and unfortunately, people weren't paying attention. Our education system is no longer based on actual education. It's based on indoctrination. And our education system breeds ignorance throughout our society. It's not about facts. And it doesn't just start at the college level. It begins all the way in kindergarten. When we look at the K through 12 system, most students don't even know about the Holocaust. They can't talk about basic facts that Hitler rose to power through the democratic process. They can't name one concentration camp. They don't know how many people died in the concentration camps. Then you look at American history, only 13% of American students demonstrate proficiency in American history. That includes World War II. How can we survive as a nation if you don't understand the nation? And as they go through this failed education system, they're then bombarded with messaging of anti-Americanism, anti-Western civilization, anti-Semitism, and that makes it very easy at the college level to indoctrinate students when they don't have a foundation and an education. They can't critically think for themselves. They can't problem solve. It leaves them open to the messaging and the indoctrination that's taken place. That's why it's so radicalized on these campuses.
Professor, one of the things that concerns me greatly is our elite college campuses, the Harvards, the Yales, the Cornells, NYUs, these types, the kind of schools I could never get into, the kind of schools that produce our leaders in this society, and they're a disaster. Either they're getting China money, they're getting billions from the Arab world, and these are the universities that are the most radical, and that's not an accident, is it?
No, it's not an accident. We put out a report of billions of dollars being transferred from governments like Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and the big one, obviously, is China. They've been able to infiltrate our college campuses. And we know about the sophistication of the Chinese apparatus with their influence campaigns. When it comes to the Arab governments, We don't know a lot about where this money is flowing to, what's the intended purpose for it. And that's something that Congress should be looking into. I mean, I held a security clearance for years, and I had to report every single time I had contact with a foreign national. These colleges and universities don't have to report the contact, what the money's going to, what's the intent behind it. And we don't know if some of this money is hitting these student groups that are essentially calling for a second genocide. These are not Palestinian protests. These are pro-Hamas protests. They're supporting a terrorist organization. And you see the Marxists fusing with the Islamists, and that's the conditions that we're in. And you're right, every American should be terrified because these are the future leaders, right? These are the future policymakers, doctors, lawyers, industry leaders. And so where are we headed as a society? And as our nation declines, well, just look at the education system. It directly correlates. The failures in education directly correlates with the death of a nation.
Why the crossover with the Islamists, the jihadi lovers, and the American communists? All those kids who were at the Black Lives Matter rallies, the Antifa rallies, they're all the same kids now at the Hamas-loving rallies. What's so appealing?
Yeah, apparently Jewish lives don't matter. That's what we're witnessing on these college campuses. But it's because everything is based on emotional arguments. And we don't use reason, logic, or even common sense anymore. I mean, if you ask the majority of these students that are protesting, when did Palestine become an official nation state? Most will say off a random date, yet Palestine was never an official nation state. Palestine didn't exist. It was Israel. Then it turned into the land of Palestinians through the Romans, and Jews were referred to as Palestinians up until the early 20th century. Yet they don't know these basic facts to understand it. They don't know that the Arab governments invaded Israel not to free Palestinians, but to take over the lands for themselves. And so it really is remarkable. If you challenge them, they can't answer questions, but they're driven by emotion. And that's what our education system has done. It's not about facts anymore. It's about using emotion to push a political agenda. And they've done a good job of that, as we're witnessing. These are not small protests going on college campuses. Now, here's the crazy part. If you protest in support of conservatism or limited government, you're going to be relegated to some obscure part of campus in one of their free speech zones because your protest in support of limited government or conservatism can trigger other students. Yet here we actively have students calling for the annihilation of Israel, and yet they get to protest wherever they want on the college campus. Truly remarkable.
Do you think parents are starting to wake up to the poison on college campuses now? Look, when I was a kid, I even went to college for a year, and of course I failed out before I joined the Marines, but that's how I was raised. That's how everyone my age was raised. You got to go to college. You got to go to college. Is that going away?
Yes, I think that's actually gone. That was a myth that in order to live a successful life, you need to go to college, when the reality is there's actually alternatives where you could be just as successful and not have to spend $150,000 getting indoctrinated, whether it's two-year schools, whether it's trade schools, whether it's starting your own business. But parents have woken up because what they see is they invest all their money in this education, and then when their kids graduate, they can't get a job. And nobody wants to be $100,000 in debt and be living at home with their parents and become a store clerk. So I think a lot of people started to re-question whether or not college is useful. But also we've seen major corporations, Google, IBM, Tesla, Bank of America, Walmart corporate positions. We reported at Campus Reform how they have done away with the 4-year degree requirement for a lot of positions. States like New Jersey, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and Virginia have also moved away from 4-year degree requirements because the education system is not properly training students to be productive citizens, to critically think and problem solve. And so there's going to be less value for this piece of paper that people are receiving. And now that the donor class has finally woken up, you thought it would have came about when they were pushing anti-Americanism, but they finally woken up where they're not going to be contributing the money anymore. They've already threatened to stop the donations. That will get the attention of the administration of these institutions, and it will force them to change their behaviors.
Yeah, let's hope so. Professor, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.